In the last video, I introduced the concept of lanes. Lanes are great ways of having alternate versions of tracks or building comps or keeping your automation separate. And we're going to learn how to create lanes in this tutorial. So I've got a 4-bar loop set up. I'm set to play my subtractor, and we're going to record a quick 4-bar sequence. So I've expanded my sequencer. I'm going to turn on my click and pre-count. Here we go. So by default, when I add a device, Reason creates a track and creates a single lane for that track. And that's what I recorded onto here, the first lane. Now we're going to add a second lane by clicking one of these buttons. The Dub button and the Alt button create additional lanes. I'll discuss each of those. You can use the shortcuts comma for Dub and period for Alt. Okay, so let's start with Dub. A Dub is simply a second lane that plays simultaneously with the other lanes. So I'm going to double-click to rename this first lane, and I'll call it chord part, and I'll double-click the second lane and call it bass part. Now we'll record a second 4-bar sequence on the second lane. Now I recorded to that lane because that was the one that has the record light or the record indicator lit. And let me zoom in here, and you can see the two parts. There are some lines in there which show that I used the mod wheel. As you can see, clips can contain not only note information, but controller information as well. Now I'm going to click the alternate take button, and what that does is it mutes the previous take automatically. You can see it's muted. And now I'll record a new bass part. So Dub will create a new part. Alt creates a new part but mutes the previous one. So now I have 3 lanes. We're going to mute the bass parts for a second. Now let me unmute the first bass part. So I can play them all simultaneously if I want. Now when I want to create new lanes of notes or MIDI controller information, I have to use one of these buttons, Dub or Alternate. But when I record automation, Reason automatically creates separate lanes for the automation. Watch what happens when I press record, and I'll move some of the knobs on my subtractor. So we moved the frequency and resolution of the first filter, and you'll notice it didn't put it on lane 4. That's just for notes and MIDI information. It actually created automation lanes, and it separated out each different control that I automated onto its own lane. And as we already know, we can turn on or off either one of these. So I just turned off both. Let me turn on the frequency, the resolution. We'll talk more about recording automation, but you can see how easy it is to do that in Reason. And the fact that everything's kept on separate lanes makes it really easy to edit. Now, one of the other uses of lanes is to create comps. That's where you take sections of different parts and put them together to create the best part you can. So I'm going to make a separate chord part here. I'll mute the first one. I could have clicked alternate and done the same thing. Okay, not really chords, it's really arpeggios, but you get the idea. I'll move this chord part up to there, so I see my 2 parts that are labeled chord parts. And now I'll use my razor tool and chop them both at bar 3. And now I'll switch to my mute tool, which is the letter T, and I'll mute the first half of the second chord part and the second half of the first chord part. So I have a comp with the chords in the first two measures and the arpeggios in the second two measures. And there's no reason you couldn't do this with more than two lanes. Now, clicking the X will let me delete any lane. And if I hold down Command or Alt, just like with tracks, I can delete the lanes without the warning message.